Welcome to this episode of DIY3DTech.com. In this episode, I want to show you guys a little bit of a discovery I made and might help you out if you have a K40 CO2 laser. Now, one of the things I was doing is browsing the old interweb looking for something, and I ran across this guy. And this is a lab jack stand, and it was under 20 bucks, a great deal. And what happens is you turn this knob and the platform goes up, you turn it, the platform goes down. And I got thinking, hey, this would be a really cool solution for an adjustable bed for the laser printer. Now, there's a lot of solutions out there for stepper motors and everything, but for me, simple is probably the best. I don't really have a need to change things up and down that much, and to be quite frank, it's not that good over a huge area. So a lot of what I use is this 6x6 material over here. So I've got this 3mm 6x6. I get it off eBay relatively cheap. And most of what I cut is actually parts for 3D printers, drones, and that kind of stuff with it. So it works rather well. So anyways, I ran across this and I thought, this is really cool, because one of the pieces I have the problem with the graded bed that you see me use is reflections of the laser from that as it cuts through and comes back up. And the reflection actually melts some of the plastic underneath, and I get kind of a jagged cut. I'm really not happy with it. So I was looking for a little bit of a solution, and I thought this was pretty interesting. Now, there are different sizes of these. Originally, I was looking at an 8-inch version. Now, this is 4 inches by 4 inches, and the 8x8, unfortunately, was too tall this way. This one happens to work very well. In other words, it goes down low enough that it actually fits underneath, and I can actually jack it up to match my material. So what I do is I do a slant board cut and set my height. Anyways, but 4x4 is a little bit small. So what I did is I turned to my 3D printer and I've designed up these two beds. Now these will be out on Thingiverse too. So if you want to try this, the link for this jack, well, it'll be below, and also the links to these beds will be out on Thingiverse. And so if you want to try it, because what I did is I actually took these and, the pins might fall out of these, or some of them, but that's okay. We'll talk about that in a minute. So I recessed this so this actually pops on. So when this goes on, this actually snaps on. It's a pretty tight fit, so you might have to clean it up. And then there you go. So I now have a 6x6 bed. Now what I've also done is I've come up with these little standoffs. And so the little standoffs go in here, and you can put them anywhere you want. You can put them in here if you want. You can put them out here. Now, I did not make them too tall, because what I want to do is I want this to rest on top of here, and I want the part to be able to drop down but not fall down, if you follow me. So as this is cutting out, I like to see that the part is fully cut, because if not, if I don't touch it, I can likely do a second run and cut the piece out if it doesn't cut fully. But if it falls down into the bottom, then what happens is the area beam, as it runs back across, typically because it's slid over, burns it, and it becomes ugly. So this just allows it to drop down. Now, a little bit here. I did these out of PLA, and I recommend PLA over ABS, and not that I'm recommending this being safe. You do this at your own risk, but I've made stuff for the laser out of ABS before, and I don't like it. So I think PLA is a little bit better bet, because this is going to be a sacrificial bed. This bed is going to get burned, damaged, and everything else. So anyways, be forewarned. The other thing that I did is on the bottom underneath here, and I'm going to turn this over and these pins are going to fall out again, is I made inserts for neodymium magnets. Now you have to press these in with a pair of pliers. I didn't want to glue them in because this is sacrificial. I'm going to throw this away, and I don't want to throw the neodymium magnets away. So I'll just pop these out, break off the corner, pop them out, pop them in the new bed in the future. And so what I can do is, if I don't want to use these pins, say I want to use paper like in a prior episode, if I can pull this out, sometimes they stick, sometimes they don't, I can just use another set of neodymium magnets to hold whatever down. And actually, quite frankly, if you wanted to even hold this down like this, there's still enough force with this neodymium magnet to even hold this 3mm piece of acrylic down. So that's another sort of cool option that I've designed up. Now, the other piece I did is, again, as I mentioned, most of the material I cut, and I do basically 99% cutting, maybe 98%. I do engrave some small objects, but again, most of it's cutting, and so I've designed this one up. Now, one of the pieces, like when I did the sort of thing for my other channel on photography, I wanted a bigger plate. So what happens is I design this up, this bigger plate, and this is actually 6 by 8. Yeah, I think so. And what happened, or a little bit shorter than 8, so it'll print on a 200 by 200 printer. And again, this does the same thing. I'm trying not to shake the bench, but it snaps on and pops on, and then it works just like the other one, but it gives you a bigger bed to work with. So if you want to try bigger materials and everything, you can go with a bigger bed. Now the other nice thing, and we'll jump over the laser in a minute, but I just thought it would be easier to show you guys more detail here at the bench. Now you can slide this around inside your laser to place it where you want, because this is not mounted to the bottom. So I tell you what, let's hop over to the laser and let's take a look at these actually in the laser and see how it all looks. Alright, so we're back here at the laser, so I've got it set in with the larger bed, and one of the things I wanted to show is, number one, you need a little bit of room to get your hand in here, so I could actually make this a little bit bigger, and I could actually tuck it back a little bit more behind this. I wanted to keep this to size where a person with basically an 8 by 8 inch 3D printer could actually print this. I'm going to probably print a larger version on my Creality or my Tron XE, and for the future. But for right now, this actually works pretty good, because one of the pieces, you know, when I was doing the paper piece, I wanted to be able to put the paper in here and do the paper cut, and as you can see, it gives it fairly good support. And what I might actually do is also design up some arms that come off of here too, to provide some extra support. So just kind of design something up and extend it out. So be watching on Thingiverse for any updates, because the other thing is you want to be able to get your hand down here to be able to adjust this. Now what I typically do for the laser alignment is I do a slant board test, put in a board like this at an angle, run the laser on a straight line, find its sharpest point, measure the distance, and usually create a jig to set my laser height. So since I've been pretty much using a fixed bed, I really haven't done that, so I've got to have to go back and do this. So I do some follow-up on that. But if you're interested in the slant board, which is the best way to do your laser focusing, check back in the playlist, and I'll see if I can't search for it. Maybe put a card up or the link below. Anyways, the other pieces, as you notice, I've got the pin set up so I can take my 6x6 and put it in here, and boom, it sets right in there. And I can actually move this around, so I can set this right in the corner. I can move this back a little bit. I can move this over here. So I can move this wherever I want, which I really like. Now I'm going to probably have to do some playing around with this. And again, if you adjust your laser intensity correctly, it's still going to burn this bed, it's still going to mark this bed, but it shouldn't really cut it too bad. Again, as I mentioned at the bench, this is a sacrificial piece, so I will end up throwing this away at some point in time. Excuse me, which is okay. Oh, sorry I bumped you guys. Trying to work around camera and that kind of stuff is always difficult. So anyways, I thought this was a pretty cool idea, so I really like this for my my laser, because again, if I want to do some engraving, so I usually, when I said, it's about, 90-some%, I engrave, around the holiday time and for gifts and for just trinkets. I get these at Hobby Lobby, these little glass things, and I, will put somebody's name or heart and some initials and that kind of stuff. And so I really like the idea of this for focusing, because I can now put this on here and I can get the perfect focus with this, rather than kind of 50-50 focus I was getting in the past. So I kind of like this. The other piece that this allows me to do is because this is standard pegboard size, so I used my pegboard generator out on Thingiverse to create this. So what you can do is build other jigs for this, and that's what I really intend on doing, is probably creating a whole set of jigs for this to hold different pieces in place while they're being engraved or cut or anything like that. So again, like I say, check back. You'll see some different things come out. I'm definitely going to create some arms that go out to support paper, because after that paper experiment, I really like that idea. And you notice I set it so basically it did not cut the underlying paper. And so that's what I'm talking about setting your beam intensity. If you have the right focus, beam intensity, and everything set, this actually should work out pretty good. So anyways, I'm a little bit excited about this, and that's why I wanted to share it with you guys, because I think you'd find value in it. Because again, this is, maybe a few pennies in plastic and under 20 bucks for this jack, and now I have an adjustable bed. Because, doing the whole motor thing, the light objects bed, and, because the one thing, cutting out this whole size, I've spent hours and hours and maybe even days on aligning all these mirrors and everything. And, the further you get out this way into here, you basically lose, the majority of your laser power. And again, you can really adjust it, but, for practical purposes, for me, this 6x6 stuff really works great. And most of the stuff that I'm cutting for either drone or 3D printer parts, this is plenty big enough. And at 6x6, I really don't have to worry about huge alignment issues and all that kind of stuff, because the big thing is when I'm usually using this for something, I just want to get it done and move on. I don't want to have to spend a bunch of time messing with it, and that's why, again, I like the simplicity of this. I can now just do the slant bore test, set the height. I'm going to create a little 3D printed gauge to go underneath there. And then boom, I just adjust this up, whatever object I have on here, whether it's a 1-inch board for engraving, a 3mm piece of acrylic for cutting, it's done. So anyways, hopefully you find this interesting. Links for this will be below. Also, there's probably some cards up there. And I'll also put a link, if you guys really want to mess around, I'll put a link to some different sizes and models of these out on the 3dtech.com website. And feel free to experiment, and I'd love to see what you come up with. And if you come up with something cool, drop me a line. Maybe I'd like what you've come up with better than what I've come up with. So anyways, give us a big thumbs up if you found it of value. Don't forget, Swag Shop's going to be up there. Christmas time's coming. A lot of great gifts. Get in on them. And then subscribe. If you're not a subscriber, I release regular content across CNC, laser, 3D printing, you name it. If you got questions, hit me up in the comments, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers.
Please click like below and subscribe to the channel to keep up